Hi, everyone. My name is Ezgi, and I'm the Associate Director of Strategy at Tealeaves. It gives me a huge pleasure to welcome everyone today to Tealeaves' Nature X Design. It's a virtual festival that blends internal wellness with the external environment. Through this collective journey, we hope to arrive at a more resilient future for us all. So today we're really excited to share with you ideas from those in the forefront of this field to inspire ways that we and our planet can benefit from adopting innovative circular design practices. So to lead us through this conversation, we're joined by three experts in design and circular economy. We've got Srinivasan, our guest moderator. He's the president of World Design Organization, working with its global members to promote design for a better world. He's the chairman and CEO of LUMIUM Design Incorporated, a Silicon Valley-based award-winning product design company that has developed 300 plus products in the consumer electronics, medical, industrial goods, security, and surveillance domains. LUMIUM has design studios in Santa Clara, Ahmedabad, Kochi in Mumbai, and in Tokyo to execute creative design projects for their global clients. Next, in the interplay of lush designs on the one hand and minimizing the impact on our environment on the other hand is Daniela Bohlinger's daily challenge. Having dedicated herself to a more sustainable approach in design, she was one of the masterminds behind the unique sustainable design concept of Project I, which resulted in the BMW i3 car and has pushed ahead with innovative eco-friendly initiatives ever since. Apart from contributing to the company's strategic development with regard to sustainability, she's a frequent guest lecturer at different universities, think tanks, and panel discussions, jury and coach, and fosters a strong dialogue with players from inside and outside the automotive industry. Prior to joining the BMW Group design team 18 years ago as a color and trim designer, Daniela had worked in different industries as a product designer where she always felt confronted with the consequences of her work on the environment. Next, we've got Simon Widmer, who's the design network and creative lead at the MacArthur Foundation. He believes in the power of design and our ability to shape products, services, and systems for a circular economy that can work in the long term. Following this passion, Simon's co-created the Circular Design Program and led the development of Circular Design Guide together with IDEO. Previously, he's been a project manager in the New Plastics Economy Initiative and a consultant at McKinsey & Company. Thank you, everyone, for spending your day here with us. Srini, it's my pleasure to hand it off to you.
So thank you, SG, and also thank you, Tealeaves, for inviting all of us on this wonderful platform where we can share our thoughts and also participation of key topics such as the circular economy. So I would like to start my question with Simon, because everybody knows circular economy, but not necessarily know circular economy. So I would like to, since EMF has done a wonderful job, I would like to ask Simon, what do you mean by circular economy, and what is a specific economic system seen as a plausible construct in response to the climate degeneration?
Thank you so much, Srini, and thank you everyone for joining today. It's a great pleasure. I'm really looking forward to the next hour. Exciting, yeah. Circular economy in essence is a resilient and regenerative economy that can work in the long term. So essentially, in the simplest way, and I know there's different backgrounds here in the audience. Some people might have heard more about it, some less. So we'll go into further detail later. But in its essence, it's the contrast to the linear model, which is taking something out of the ground, using it for a very short time, and then you end up with waste. So it's a very linear model that creates issues at the front. So in the extractive end of the linear model, as well as obviously then with the waste and pollution in the end, which we all are familiar with. And in contrast to that, the circular economy is regenerative by design, and we typically look at three principles when we talk about the circular economy. The first one is to design out waste and pollution from the very outset. So rather than dealing with the symptoms of a system that doesn't work, we try to design out from the very outset, and that's why design is such an important element here. The second one is to keep products and materials in use as and at highest value. And the last one is to regenerate systems, so essentially to make sure that whatever we design with is food for something else afterwards. That's in a nutshell Obviously, we can go into further depth later, and there's a lot of information about the topic, but that would be like a quick introduction.
Thank you, Simon, for that wonderful introduction of circular economy. Daniela, with the circular economy being understood through Simon's definition, how big companies such as BMW are especially coping with this aspect of circular economy in its product development?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Srini, for joining this super nice panel talk. Circular economy is, in fact, for our size of companies, is a huge challenge. First of all, it's especially when you come from a long history and you're not a startup, or you're a company which just created or just is rethinking how to build products. So it is definitely our way for the future and the next generation, but it is real strong challenge.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniela. I know that from your past background, you were in the fashion industry. So I know luxury is something that we all crave for. At the same time, luxury can also be mentioned as something which is sort of wasteful. So in the new paradigm of luxury, what do you think is the new luxury with respect to sustainability? And how do you see the new luxury becoming part of our life, keeping in mind the circular economy?
So especially, of course, because I'm working in the luxury industry, well, physically, since my entire life, when I do product design, I think thinking on the first hand, where do we actually receive our materials from, is something which I think is the essence of designing any kind of product, especially luxurious products. So is being aware of your supply chain and starting from there, where do you receive your materials? How do you actually behave and treat people? Up to the end, where do these materials go to? Because physically, it's a lot of times they actually, wherever we buy our materials all around the world. And unfortunately, a lot of materials are shipped back to countries and they have to take care of our leftovers. So I think luxury in the future, or at least or now, is responsibility within your design process from the beginning to the end. And the end is not going somewhere linear, is what Simon just explained, is closing a circular loop.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question for you. Do you believe the new luxury will still be able to manage the sustainability and the circular economy principles? But people still need luxury, meaning, there is a market for luxury, but in the new definition of luxury, do you feel there is a market for luxurious goods?
Well, it's an interesting definition, because when you say new products, I guess when we are really thinking in circles, the lifespan of a product will be extended for much longer. And I think the question is if we can actually educate or more educate customers to stay longer with their products and make products so from the design point of view so adorable that you want to stay very long to it, bring them attachment to the products. And then this is the pure luxury that you probably inherit products to the next generation. And that, I think, is already one part of a circular principle.
Thank you, Daniela. Simon, I know that you have spent some time with the New Plastic Society, and you have done some new plastic economy related, which is also a 3-year program. I thought it's very pertinent for us to talk about it a little bit here. Could you tell us about how and who can join the new plastic economy, and what are all the major aspects of that award that was announced by the new plastic economy?
Yeah. The new plastics economy is indeed one systemic initiative that the foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, drives. it looks at how we can apply the circular economy principles in the industry of plastics packaging. So we started that journey 5 years ago, and we asked ourselves the question, in which industry could we test the circular economy principles? Like, what challenging industry could we look at? And obviously plastics is a really challenging industry, given that a lot of the packaging is quite low value and large volume. So you have these sachets, you have different types of packaging that are in itself not very valuable after use. It's very hard to create the economics for recycling and so on. And so essentially that was the reason why we started looking at plastics packaging as our first systemic initiative. And we have been working on this for 5 years now. It's one of the core elements of the initiative is to overcome fragmentation. So when we started, there were good intentions, and there were a lot of different initiatives globally around how can we increase recycling, what can we do with waste, but there was a lack of one kind of aligned vision across the value chain. And it's really important in the circular economy that you have alignment around the vision, because it's essentially like the whole system needs to work together, because designers have a strong influence on like what is possible after use. The after use sectors can then invest in new technologies to bring things back. Anyway, I'm digressing here a little bit. As you can see, I'm very excited about the topic. But the answer to your question is there are already 1,000 organizations involved in the initiative, and people can join. So there is, specifically for this initiative, there is something called the Global Commitment that people can join. There's a link on the New Plastics Economy website. And that's just one program of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. There's other ways to get engaged. And I do think that in our audience today, there are going to be a lot of designers also outside of plastics packaging. And we'll have a few tools and a few resources at the end. I think we want to keep a few little treasures for the end as well. But I'm sure Kate will post some links of how people can get involved. And as you know, the foundation is a charity, and we are very inclusive, and we welcome people on board of this effort.
Yeah, I was very happy to see SWTO also promote circular economy and sustainability in a very big way. I was very happy to see that some of the new material that the New Plastic Economy group is encouraging, namely the bioplastics or the other materials, magnetic coating, etc., are very impressive. So I was very, very impressed with the effort that is being done. And would you agree the statement that there could be more plastic than fish by the year 2050?
This is another great one to chat about for quite a long time. It's almost one for the pub, actually. So when we collected the evidence around what is happening currently in the plastics packaging industry, the data was very fragmented. So essentially, we have pulled together a team in the foundation. We were five people. We worked closely with McKinsey and a group of, a whole network of organizations in this field to pull together the data. We looked at how much plastics packaging is being produced every year, how much of that leaks into the ocean, and we looked at scientific papers around fish stocks. And that's how in our first report, the New Plastics Economy, unless there's a change of how we do things, as in a business as usual scenario, indeed there could be more plastics than fish. But obviously, first of all, we hope that we are working very hard on changing the systems. So that's one. Even when it comes to the whole intricacies of like what do we mean by plastics, and also what do we mean by fish? So there's a whole debate that we could have around here. But I think what is very clear is that based on today's figures, or the figures that we had at the time that we published the report, you essentially have, okay, I have to do it this way. You have this like almost exponential increase of leakage of plastics packaging. If I remember, more than 8 million tons a year. That of course doesn't go away, right? So everything that leaks will stay there for 100 years or so. So I think in its essence, I think it's very clear that we need to act.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. That was very insightful. All the audience, please look at New Plastic Economy. They have some fantastic information there. So Daniela, so I would like you to share with us some of the case studies that your organization, either in BMW or in the past, have done to provide some examples of how effectively you have implemented the circular economy practices.
Well, case study sounds like we
You
did
can be
it.
very brief. You don't have to.
Well, circular economy is in fact something which we probably do since a very long time, even so we didn't call it really circular economy in the first place. And I mean, as we know, everything around the building a car is highly complicated. And so we started where we are good in, especially in our material development departments. So questioning the fact what kind of material are our textiles made of? And they're all made out of actually one material, and it's polyester. So polyester is actually really cool to recycle. And what I personally always loved is when I go to the factories, which we do as designers a lot, and we love to look in all the machines and all the scraps and everything. And there was all this scrap, which is just cut off of the textiles when you do your cut kits. So wondering that the material is physically a monomaterial and what is the purpose of these scraps, challenging them to the fact that they remanufacture this material and make new yarn out of it. And was a really nice example of redesigning old into new and weaving. We got a totally new textile with a total new look, made out of our own scratch. Even we actually took scratch from our competitors because they actually do the same things in the same factory. So I love this approach from our design department, really starting in a small circular way, but introducing new materials and taking away the fear, which a lot of people have, preconceptions about waste, telling them that it is not waste, it's just physically the same material, and you're gonna create something new. And from this part and from this start, I got a lot of designers encouraged to really rethink their own material flows. And these are probably small examples, and it sounds small, but when you are able to put that in around 4 million cars, then you really have an impact with what you do.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely, Daniela. Thank you for sharing that insight. I have another question for you. I know humans are averse to change. We are all averse to change, so we certainly resist. And especially so when there is a very well-established company and marquee brand such as BMW. So how do you see the change getting embraced? What is it that the company is doing to influence the designers and the workmen to adopt to new ways of doing that is supporting the circular economy?
that's a big question. It's really a big question because I think that's the overall challenge we do have when we want to introduce something new. And even so, I would call myself like being in the sustainability management, but it's more change management, what I try to do. And I mean, I operate in this field probably the last 8 years. And I can see that there's a big demand now for purpose. I couldn't see that like 5 years ago. We were still looking into luxury development, and just coming from the project where we actually showed that there is a purpose-driven design possible, and it can be done, and it's beautiful. So I can see now that my designers are even grieving for new questions, and they would love to have more purpose in their design, and they love the challenge now to rethink what they did all the years before. And it's definitely, I mean, just honestly, especially with the circular economy, where we can actually really name it, and where you can also get help from like MacArthur, for example, and then guide them through their website and tell them, look at that. There are good examples how to do it. I can see that my designers are really, really getting into that and getting very open. Even so, they need guidance, especially when it comes to the terminologies. That is, I think, is a big question at the moment, is what is circular design? What is circular economy? What is recycling? What is upcycling? What should we do? So apart from that, I think it's a perfect time at the moment.
Thank you. I think that was a wonderful answer. So I knew you could handle, that's why I gave you a big question. So Simon, so I know that, the institutions are really rushing to embrace circular design, given the current economic and the environmental climate from the lens of finance and investors. What is the argument that can be made to promote circularity? Because it also means sometimes less profitability. So how do you see that, why should we be going towards circularity, and what is the reason for us to forego that little profit that we're always wanting to have?
There's a lot of interesting stuff in that question. First, I would actually ask a question back, and that is like, does it have to be a trade-off? Could this be a model of actually thriving business going forward? And the indication for that is that, for example, over the last 18 months, we have seen a very strong inflow of capital into this sector. So we have, over the last 18 months, have seen equity funds increase from 1 to 10. Also, like a lot of that going into that. So people understand that topics such as climate change, issues with biodiversity loss, also resilience more generally, these are like big issues, and they're here, but also they will be relevant for some years to come. So we do need to adapt the way we conduct business. That's clear. But in terms of like being, I would be the first one to argue that's the right thing to do anyway. But even also from a profitability and risk perspective, it just makes business sense. And that's, I think, why we see a lot of the financial institutions now kind of going very heavily for circular economy, because they see it as a solution to some of these challenges. And I do take it that they are the better indicators of whether something is profitable and attractive than my own opinion. So I would refer to that. But there was something else in your question, right? Like one was around like the profitability,
So what is the argument that we should make in support of promoting the circularity versus losing profitability?
Yeah, so I think the profitability one we have talked about, but then more broadly, the question is like, when it comes to design and what Daniela, what you just mentioned around meaning and purpose, I think the designers, or the design stage, let's say design stage, because there's also other professions involved in the creation of, like, let's say cars or any products and services. That's so powerful and so important. So there is a very strong case around challenging us and challenging us to be creative and innovative around the way we do things and the way we design, and that can be a huge enabler of new models. So when it comes, for example, to climate change, we know that shifting to renewable energy is really, really important, right? We know that this is like one of the main drivers to achieve our climate targets. But circular economy and design actually is the second part of it, because out of the emissions that we need to reduce, around 55% is from the renewable energy, and the rest is like how we design and make products. So redesigning is also an imperative from that perspective.
Thank you, Simon. Maybe there is a homework for all of us together as we push this circular economy in a big way. So if there is a way for us to show that in the longer term, there is going to be profitability in whatever sense, however we measure. So if we are able to articulate that and demonstrate, probably there'll be more acceptance is what I think, I personally feel. So, but thank you for your answer. So Daniela, I know you're handling a lot of designers at your end in BMW. So what resources are available within BMW to engage in circular practices? And who is leading the documentation? Because most of us are designers, have their own mind, but today we are also making them follow some very, very cool and new practices. So, but then the companies have to give them some adequate tools. So do you have that available at within your group, at least within your group, if not the entire company?
Yeah, we have this magic tool.
Okay.
It's extremely easy, bam, and they all do it.
Wow, that's
So,
good. We need to follow that. We need to follow that and get everybody do that magic.
I found the tool. Actually, no. Well, what we do is we do what we actually said. We set we set up a project which is the big circular economy project, and which is separated into different departments and different purposes on circularity. So we're gonna we set an example on how we probably could do it. And what I think is the beauty of this project is that within this project, we have all different departments who are actually working and together designing a car, and from communication to strategy. And I think what the most important thing is that you're going to break down all the knowledge you have now from the whatever energy to recycling, and break it down into your own departments. And I think that is something which I do, even if it's circular economy or if it's sustainability strategy, is always what the question is: what do I have to do? I have no clue, because it's a strategy. So what we actually do at the moment, we really break it down, and we rewrite the books of how to do it. And this is something I do together with the brands. Since we work together with all brands at BMW. It's Mini and BMW and motorbikes and Rolls-Royce. So this is a general thing, how to approach design and circularity when it comes to car design. But then it's a different book when you do the interpretation of circular economy or circular design within your brand. And when you think of Mini, it's a total different way of showing monomaterials or showing how to reassemble something, rather than you go into a 7 Series where you have a total different customer, and they're probably don't even want to see anything on kind of like possibility of upgrading, because that's something they take for advantage, take as a given. So the challenge is to give the tools to all these different levels. I'm in that right at the moment. So to really write guidance on what to do and how to do it, and walk the talk and see how you actually get accepted, how we do it. We are learning, I would say. We are learning by the process of doing it.
Absolutely. So another question for you. I know that large companies, especially the automotive companies, there's always a material division that keeps looking at materials, that is being sourced from wherever they are sourcing. So is there a very close interaction between the designers who could be the future users of that research? Is there a formal relationship between your materials division and the designers per se?
Oh yeah, of course. So I mean, like in all other car companies, there is within the designers, there is the color and trim division who is taking care of all the materials which you can touch and feel and see. There is a close relationship to our the guys who do the life cycle assessments and do the calculations. So this is, we do have a whole network on all people who work on sustainability. So the next connection is then that we do have the material guys who are enabling materials then, plastics, metals, whatever. So it's always the question between, does it fit the purpose? Does it fit the requirement? Does it fit economically? And is it sustainable? Or is it better than what we used before? And this is a very strong connection we do have, but not always without a fight.
Of course, I was going to ask you, you read my mind. Are there conflicts between designers and the materialists? Because designer will say, no way, Jose, this will not work. And there's going to be a huge argument after that, right? So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just today I had this talk. It's about, oh, I would love to use all these materials because they are fitting my purpose of look, touch, color. So now it's the discussion about, can we find something which fits my purpose and my goals of sustainability and circularity, and then also is attractive to the whole setup, what they're gonna design for the interior or exterior. So this is tiptoeing and negotiating between what is still acceptable and what is yet within my sustainability range. So
thank you. And how about the branding and the marketing folks? I'm sure they also would come back and say this kind of shine is okay or not okay. Maybe we need to address them as well as we embrace the circular economy. That's what I think.
Well, the
Hopefully.
marketing folks, these are the interesting parts when they come from the different worlds. So when they reflect us, the demands of the Chinese world and the demands of the European world, and we are designing one product which should fit all. So setting up new paradigms to understand what an expression of material is under the thought of circularity, or under the thought of, I would say, there's sustainability and then there's circular design. With in mind that we want to reduce the carbon footprint overall, that is always a big battle, and then it needs a lot of time and a lot of in the long-term developments, so that you can actually offer alternatives which you don't really need to compare to what was before, but you say you have a new holistic concept which looks different, and you do not miss all that stuff which we wanted to take out. So to say that you're going to create a whole fully interior, not naming the stuff you replaced.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for a very good and elaborate answer, Daniela. Simon, I think we also have climate related issues that we are addressing as a whole circular economy. And in this context, I think EMF has done a lot of study and research. So one of the things that we all know is renewable energy alone is not enough. And we need to have a fundamental shift in our global approach. How does the circular economy play a role in this aspect?
Yes, as you mentioned, like renewable energy is of course a key component in achieving our climate targets. And we, based on the paper that we have published called Completing the Picture, and about the role of the circular economy in achieving and helping to achieve the climate targets, we see that around half of the emissions can be addressed through that part, and the rest is like through the way we design and make our products, as well as of course food and agriculture. So the circular economy can help us on this path by giving us principles and a vision and ideas and strategies to redesign our products. So when we look into a few key sectors, and I haven't been part of that team, so I've referred to the paper to look a bit deeper into it, but a few points that I've noted down is that even just looking at 5 key sectors such as steel, aluminium, plastic, food, and cement, if we apply circular economy principles in the way we design and produce, we can actually reduce CO2 emissions by the same amount as all transport emissions globally. So that would be a reduction of like 9 billion tons of CO2 equivalents. And that just gives us a glimpse of how much embedded carbon is in our products, right? So when you look at the building, for example, it's not just about the heating, right? I mean, in a simplified way,
Sure.
it's also about the way that has been designed. And if we, for example, tear down a building after, I don't know, 20, 30 years, because it hasn't been designed for, for adaptation to, changing needs and so on, we lose all that embedded carbon, right? So the way we design is really key, and circular economy can give us there some really good vision. Similarly for agriculture, regenerative agricultural practices, right? A big lever towards achieving our climate change targets.
Thank you. So in this context, would you, is EMS approaching the cities or the political layer where we need to make some real change in the laws? Is that one of your audiences is cities and the municipalities who can make a change in their approach? Is there an effort from EMF, in other words?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with cities, we work with governments. It's one of the key focus areas of our work. So at the MacArthur Foundation, we really believe in the systemic change agenda. So we need to work across business, across governments, across cities, policymakers, and of course, design, really key. We need to work across these sectors. It's not like a reductionist agenda where we can only focus on one area, because all of these are interlinked. So it plays a key role, and we can find more info on the foundation's website about the city's work. Yeah.
Thank you. So I have another question for you. I know that everybody's mind is on post-COVID and how do we first of all, protect ourselves from the pandemic, as well as the other worry that people have is the economic recovery, right? So how do we recover from it, going back to olden days where were golden days, right? That's what people are always waiting, when the shops will open or when the flights will start and that kind of stuff. So under these circumstances, I saw that EMF is also doing economic recovery weekly show. And I've seen so far, whatever I've seen, they are mostly focused on the UK side of it. So is there a plan for that show to be taken to the global market?
The weekly show addresses different topics, and COVID has been one of the topics, obviously, because it's on all our minds and because it affects everyone. But it is intended to be relevant and an free online series that continues every week. Obviously, COVID is like one of the main topics in there, and the question is, given that we have seen how not resilient our systems are, could circular economy be one of the parts of the solution? How can circular economy help us to build back better, and not just like in terms of economic and environmental outcomes, but also in terms of social dimensions? Can circular economy help us to be more inclusive and more distributed in the way we do things, rather than a very linear approach where everything is focused on one system? And those are a few questions that are addressed in those conversations that you mentioned.
Right. So because one of the things I feel was, if this is a great opportunity for influencing people as they rebuild the economy, as they do that, and there are already few tenets that are very important for circular economy can be done, because we say source locally, we reduce the transportation related stuff. And in the COVID scenario, when transportation is difficult, this is easy to say buy locally. We all do it, we never go and look for the cheapest material because we are not wanting to go out. So therefore we take what is available, which means, we pay a few pennies more on the dollar so that, we can do. And I thought that would be a good connection between the circular economy principles. We are fighting hard to push it, whereas the natural calamity, when the rebuilding process happens, it may be people are willing to listen now because they are willing to listen to things that will put us back in the economic recovery. So that's where, therefore I thought that's very relevant to circular economy as well. So maybe that point will be taken in your next session, hopefully.
I will pick that point up. Yes.
Right.
Thank you, Srini.
Yeah. So Daniela, why is design essential to circular economy? As a designer, why do you feel?
Well, I mean, because design is the designer, and design is the one which is indicating most of material, most of tooling, physically the designing the product itself, if there is a need for the product or not, if it's a crappy product or if it's a purposeful product. And the impact as well, what kind of material you use, especially within your design. You can actually design from the beginning to understand the disassembling. You can design from the beginning and indicate materials, how you injection mold. Some materials which are recycled are a little bit more tricky in the surface. So you have to rethink your normal way of design. And what I personally push is that designer work much more close together with the end of life people. So you really have to get in a strong dialogue with the people who imagine the future and try to bring it physically on paper to the people who are finally in charge of when it comes to the end of life of the product, and tell you the problems they have when they want to disassemble or when they want to upgrade the product and they can't really get onto it. So this is I think that's a very strong connection, and we should look much more not to future scientists who tell us, who prognose the future, but who people who really work on the other side. So to understand much better what impact I do design with my lines and with my material choice. And from that knowledge, I think that is the path we're going to go in the future. It's a kind of negotiation between the best design and the purposeful product, and the best way to connect the sense of responsibility you have for the product you design. And I think we should do much more true questions to ourselves, kind of applying a kind of moral to your design, not really doing everything which you will be asked. Probably just giving them a thought if it's really there's a big need of what you design, or if it can be done different or maybe not. I mean, it's also a good choice sometimes not to design something.
Thank you. Thank you for a very thoughtful answer on that. I know that as the head of the design organization, we always push the role of designers has expanded so much. We were earlier, we were just asked to design for the aesthetics and a little bit of functionality. But now the designer's role has expanded so much in terms of shouldering much more responsibility. The whole world's pressure is on the shoulders of designers, where they are expected to know everything and at the same time also create some wonderful user experiences. And we are not necessarily designing for awards, but also for responsibility. That's the role of design as we go into the new paradigm.
There's one thing I would like to add, because you just mentioned also designing for the beauty and the awards and etc. What I absolutely miss is in all awards when it comes to design, and we try to collect design awards, there is no real section of purposeful, sustainable, responsible design. And it's always about the beauty and whatever, but is there, you know what I'm talking about.
Right,
so
absolutely.
Is it recyclable? Give them a number from 1 to 10. What is the dismantling strategy in this product? And the purpose. I would like to have a purpose button.
Right. I think that's why, some of the awards in the world, like the New Plastic Economy Award is for use of the best material, sustainable and all that stuff. Similarly, WDO also has a World Design Impact Prize, where we don't look at the aesthetics value, but how does it affect a society? How does it change the life of people to create a better world is how we award that solution. So therefore, things are changing. People are moving towards, value-based rather than aesthetics-based. So I think, I'm getting on the ping on the chat saying that, hey guys, we need a lot of questions from the panelists, from the audience. So I want to thank both of you for a wonderful session and answering the questions. Sometimes, I wanted to surprise you, and I think you guys came pretty well. So I really wanted to close this and open up questions. I'll give this back to SG.
Hello. Thank you for your fantastic insights. I'm now excited to ask some of the audience questions directly to you. We've been upvoting some of them in the background. If you navigate towards the questions and upvote them, I can ask the ones more directed. We've got firstly one from David, and I think it's directed to everyone. Do you believe that all businesses applying circular economy would be enough to cope with our current and future overpopulation and overconsumption problems? Is it enough to apply circular economy principles?
I guess there is no simple answer, because we are looking at a global problem, and the population is going to go from 7.5 to 9 billion by the year 2050. So obviously the problems are at a faster pace than the solutions are. That's very typical of our society, our economy. But certainly if you don't do that, we will perish sooner. So therefore it's imperative that we do whatever we can. If you are able to save 20% of the world in terms of material saving and a better climate and water consumption is reduced, I think we have done our part. I think this is one of the reasons. Earlier I asked Simon, the institutions, how do we tell them don't look at profitability, just do little more, is very relevant to the question. I didn't know David was going to ask his question, but we already have been pushing the agenda of getting all the institutions around the globe and making the companies and working with cities and municipalities to create a law that will facilitate a circular economy that will overall benefit the whole world. Simon and Daniela, if you want to add something.
I do definitely agree on the point that we will always need clothes, we'll always need buildings, we will always have food. Like there's an economy is always going to be needed. So the question is, how do we structure the economy and how do we produce in a more resilient way? And there's just no alternative to more circular and more regenerative practices. So I think it's clear that this is the only way we can structure our society and our economies going forward. And there's also something about, there's a broader element around regeneration as well, right? There's one around that we have talked a little bit about in terms of resource efficiency. And but I think when we look at the full potential of the circular economy and what it can do to regenerate systems, so how can we actually have both technical but also biological materials that actually feed into other uses, right? Not just within sometimes the same industries, but how can we really think in systems? Then suddenly we see that with the technologies that we have at hand, but also with the creativity and the understanding of systems, that today we can actually design systems that can address our needs in a very different way. So it's not only about doing it some percent better, but it's actually a whole reimagining of how we actually meet systems. And I think that's really promising. And then it's not just a numbers game, it's also about really on a qualitative level about ideas and about imagination and creativity.
Thank you, Simon. SG, the next question.
I mean, Daniela, allowed for you to weigh in if you had any. Okay. Well, we've got another question from Katie. What are some of your favorite alternatives to plastics and packaging? I'd love to hear from you, Simon and Daniela, if you have any of your favorite alternatives.
So you want to shoot first, Daniela? I saw you.
You start.
Okay. Okay. Well, so my brain is limited. So the full palette of solutions is incredible. And when you look, for example, at what Srini mentioned before, we have launched a $2 million innovation prize 3 years ago. It's called the New Plastics Economy Innovation Prize. We had 600 submissions on how to redesign and reimagine plastics packaging. And that ranged from algae-based solutions to actually completely designing out the material in the first place. So you have Algramo, for example, a really good idea in South America, very different context as well, different from the UK. So it just shows that the variety of circular economy solutions in different contexts. And the idea is there you get a little tricycle, and you can actually get the shampoo or your food in the right dose without any packaging in the first place. So you go there, you get the right amount, you pay for what you need. So there's like, designing out the material in the first place, using biomaterials. It's like the whole, or splosh, where you don't need any more packaging, and you dissolve the active ingredient in your bottle. So there's a whole, it blows your mind. You see so many different ways, and it's hard to pick a favorite.
And I think the issue is also not only about the substitution of the material. I mean, it's what you just said, the rethinking of the whole usage of the material. It's not about substituting my plastic bottle into biopolymers. If you don't recycle that, the biopolymer is based on kind of whatever, wheat or anything. So it's the land usage of material is again another issue. It's no feed, no food. So I think starting from zero and rethinking your whole product, not only substituting the packaging, but as you said, probably rethinking the whole system of selling it, maybe without the packaging, or something where you would come and bring your package and you get your stuff package free. So it's not that simple, I think, because a lot of materials have other issues which you substitute with. But and I think also plastic is not oil-based plastic or recycled plastic is not only the purest enemy. It's just the enemy if you're not in a system of recycling. So yeah, it has consequences.
Yeah, so thank you, Daniela. So I also want to add that the new material research has been going in a very advanced manner in the world. In Europe, there is a company that is using agar-agar and sugarcane based to produce those coating for the food, so you don't have to throw, you can just eat them. It's biodegradable and it's not harmful. And at the same time, we also seen realistic packaging material coming from bee wax, as well as there's a company in the US, in the Florida region. They use pineapple waste, the skin of the pineapple, to create a very useful biodegradable packaging material. So there is a lot of research happening. So if you Google, you will see the new material research that's happening, and therefore we are getting into a more circular economic way of packaging.
Thank you so much. Mike, I have a next question. We know that the space is extremely complicated. When we look at products, we can't just look at a product in isolation. We have to look at the entire supply chain from start to end. It becomes extremely complex. We know this because we had to look at our own entire supply chain, and there's a lot of temptations to greenwash because that's how the market works. What Betty is asking about here is, what is the biggest myth or excuse that businesses have around adopting circular practices that you could dispel here, that we see often?
Could you repeat the question, please?
What are some myths and excuses that you hear often around things that are impactful? This is going to be a very impactful solution, but it really alternatively is not.
I think the customer acceptance of a product is always a fear of a marketing guy. They always fear that, if we create something new, the customer may not accept, especially for established business practices as in the consumer electronics and other areas. They're even scared to change a little thing here because their market share will go down. And so, of course, second is the profitability, because anything that you want to do change in the supply chain will cost more money, because you need to do new systems and new methods of procurement and testing and all this stuff, whereas it's already tested and running. Daniela, Simon?
Yeah, I think there could be many. There are many myths. I think one is that and I think it's less and less prevalent now, but like this idea of having to deal with waste when it's there. So this idea of like dealing with waste when it's there, and that's circular economy, or that's it. When actually we can think about how do we design things in the first place. So going to the root of the problem rather than the symptoms. I personally struggle with solutions that are just about taking waste and then making something with it. That's one of the challenges. I'm not quite sure whether that was kind of the direction of the question, but that's something I feel is happening a lot, and that we need to move away from, because we want to design solutions that work from the outset and that don't kind of just focus at the symptoms.
Yeah, if you had a point to weigh in, I'll allow for
Okay.
that.
Do you have time for another couple of questions, Sergey?
I'm tempted to ask one more, if that's okay
I
with
think,
you.
we are okay. If I'm fine. So
Wonderful. I have to pick one, and it's only
oh,
one
you're
left.
picking one. I already answered one because I knew that we will not be having time. But
We will try and answer some of the questions in our articles as well that we
Right,
post afterwards. I'll ask the question that's gotten the most votes. From Marie got, is there a growing consensus that recycling plastics is not effective, cost effective, and that the driver should move to compostable bioplastics?
absolutely. I think there is no substitute to that. Even though we cannot drop the idea of stopping the recycling, in my opinion, we should continue to do that. And in certain places, like for example in California, so we get a tiny bit of money back to you when you send it to recycling. So there's, if monetary benefits are an incentive, so this state already does that in the US. But that's probably not enough because people don't take the effort to go. That's what the Marie is saying. It's not worth taking all the plastic bottles and put it in a bag and take it to the recycling center, and then you go there and they are closed for that day. Then you never go again because you don't check first when they are open. So I think that's a real challenge. But certainly we need to do that, because even though the percentage looks low, every small drop adds to the ocean. So definitely we cannot stop. And then simultaneously we should also do to more biodisposable material.
I personally think that the demand on recycled plastic will be getting huge, as well as the demand on especially good recycled plastic. I mean, there are good and bad plastics. So as we see that as the demands is increasing, there will be much more. How would you say, it would be more attractive to actually give your plastic back. And I mean, in Germany, we have a huge recycling system, and also you're gonna trade in your bottles. So you exactly, I mean, I haven't thrown away a piece of plastic. I can't even remember. I mean, especially when it comes to water bottles, I think all material which is contaminated with food is a little bit more tricky, especially when it comes to recycling. But I know from my industrial perspective, we need more recycled content, which we want to use. But at the moment, and it is still pricey, but as soon as we get more on that material, it will become cost neutral, and we all will start using more recycled content. And I am not a real fan on bioplastics. Especially what I just mentioned, because of the land use and all the forestry, which, probably will be cut down for bioplastics if it's not coming from a super innovation like algae from salty water or whatever growing, or oil, ricinus oil, I don't know what it's called in English, but yeah. So please, guys, collect your bottles, bring them to the recycling center. Don't throw them away. They are valuable, very valuable to us, to the industry.
Yeah, just to build on that. No, absolutely, Daniela. I think everybody plays a role in this, but I think from a kind of broader systems perspective, we've been doing like research for a couple of years on this now. And it really depends. I mean, first of all, it's clear that we need to eliminate what we don't need, like the packaging that we don't need. Second, like that we need to innovate around new business models, new ways of delivering, right? And then for whatever materials we have, that we circulate them, and that can both include the biological loop or the technical loop. So you might remember like the butterfly diagram and splitting the two cycles. And it depends so much on the local context and the infrastructure of like the country you're in, or even the industry you're in. So we have been puzzled, and I have left this team 2 years ago, but in the first 2-3 years we have been puzzled by, it's a really complex question, because every choice you make, whether you go for bio or for technical polymers, there is consequences. And I would refer to the new plastics economy in terms of like in which contexts what works. And what is clear as well, what we have heard before, is that a few plastic types have to be phased out because they are either toxic or are not economically viable to circulate. So I think that is a clear instruction as well, or like a clear recommendation as well. And then for the others, it really depends, right? So, but there's great resources, and it's all free, it's all public. So that's the kind of the offering that we can give to the audience.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your fantastic insights, and I hope that this inspires you all today. I know we're running out of time, so I will have to be the one who closes this up. Thank you so much for the work that you do every day, from the design angle to the sustainability angle. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Eski. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Simon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.